It is the last day in the month of August. Welcome in the month of August, reaching you live from the Advent Cable Network Nigeria Television, ACNN TV. So many happenings in and around the globe in the national dailies to start your week with. I am Rachel Ibn. We kickstart with the Blueprint newspaper, and I'll take it from the lead story. It says 60th confab fallout. MBA in Tartars. The kickers. New Nigerian Bar Association emerges, writes Malami. Egbe Amofin mauls Southwest body 2. The story can be found on page 6. And we have this picture of the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, accompanied by other senior officers during an operational visit to the 107 Maritime Group, Nigeria Air Force, Benin City, in preparation for the deployment of special mission aircraft for maritime security operations. Right? Then Edo Ondo polls. IG reads Riot Act to CPs on emerging trends and treats. See the story on page 8. Now to the bottom strip story. Ghana to Nigeria. 700 citizens deported for criminal activities. That story is on page 5. And on page 8, NMA threatens strike over doctors kidnap. I'll lay my bare hands on COVID-19 patients, breathe into them. This is coming from Oyedepo, and the story can be found on page 20. Daura Transportation Varsity ready September 2021, federal government assures. See the details on page 5. We move up above the lead story. Save yourself of another bad press, CSOs tell National Assembly. The kicker, false suspension of legislative activities. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 6. And on page 13, FEMA warns of severe flood in Abuja. That story is on page 13. And last story on Blueprint newspaper says, federal government planning 600 billion naira agricultural stimulus package. This is coming from the minister. We move up to the Daily Trust newspaper, and I'll take it from the top. It starts with an editorial. It says, Buhari, let go of the service chiefs now. Story starts from the front page. It continues on page 3. Now to the lead story. Flights begin immediately at Enugu Airport, says Siriaka. The details on page 2. And we have this picture from left to right. Governor of Imo State, Governor of Ebonyi State, Minister of Aviation, Governor of Enugu State, Governor of Abia State during the cutting of tape at the reopening of Akanu Ibiam International Airport, Enugu. This happened on Sunday. Now to the bottom strip stories. We have these on Forex. It says how Forex liquidity on I&E window disrupts petrol importation. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 4. Africa Bankers Award. Access Bank clinches African Banker and Women in Banking and Finance Awards. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 2. And to the last story on Daily Times newspaper. Sports. Mercy Mrs. Barker COVID-19 test as club demands 700 million euros transfer fee. The story starts from the front page. It continues on page 4. Now to Leadership newspaper. I'll take it from the lead story. It says National Assembly. Northern elders disagree over constitution review. The kickers. Channel funds into tackling insecurity. poverty. This is coming from the Northern Elders Forum. Amendment, a continuous process. This is coming from the lawmakers. Now, beside the picture, Ghana moves to stave off diplomatic row with Nigeria. The kickers denies maltreatment of Nigerians. Akufo-Addo to engage President Muhammadu Buhari on crisis resolution. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 7. Now to the picture is that of Adamawa State Governor with the founder and chairman of BUA Group when the former paid a courtesy call on the latter on BUA headquarters. This happened in Lagos. Zamfara governor seeks death penalty for reckless driving. Right? Military destroys Dar es Salaam camp on Kogi Nasra border. And we have this Access Bank MD Wigwe emerges Africa Banker of the Year. Now to the bottom strip stories. Edo Ondo polls. Again, IGP warns against violence. NAPTEP to begin exam September 21st. NLNG, that is the Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas, Train 7, saves Nigeria $2 billion. The last story from the bottom strips. JAMB lifts suspension on printing of admission letters and orders. Right above the lead story. Job loss looms as National Assembly reviews Labour Act. The kicker, Ministry seeks prohibition of labour outsourcing. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 4. Now the last story. Federal government earmarks 600 billion naira to fight hunger. Alright, that's the last story on Leadership newspaper. Now to New Telegraph newspaper. I'll take it from the top. LCCI, that is the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Businesses 80% supply chain face disruption. Asks CBN to reverse new policy on Form M. The story starts from the front page. It continues on page 1. UBA Foundation invites entries for 2020 National AC competition. See the details on page 5. Below the masthead, World Bank to federal government, end border closure to curb inflation. See the details on page 8. On page 3, Wigwe is African Banker of the Year. And on page 25, NBA, Akpata sets up committee to audit 2016, 2018, 2020 polls. Buhari deserves commendation on Enugu Airport. This is coming from Kalu, and the story is on page 7. Now to the lead story. Nigeria, Ghana face-off worsens as Ghana justifies actions against Nigerians. That's on page 3. And the kicker from the minister, we deported 700 for criminal activities. And we have this from the Ghanaian Minister of Information, Mr. Ndokjo Nkrumah. It says the Federal Republic of Nigeria is on record to have taken a number of steps in recent months which have gravely affected other countries in the region. These include the closure of Nigeria's Seme-Kreke border from August 2019 to date, and the issuance of executive orders by Nigeria's presidency, preventing foreigners from getting jobs, which Nigerians can do, to mention a few. Right to the picture, Buhari reopens Enugu Airport, says aerodrome will be concessioned. The story is on page 27. Below the picture, there will be violence in Edo, Ondo polls. This is coming from the IGP. Says politicians arming thugs. CPs to rigid operations. See the details on page 7. And the last story is a research. Sleep restriction intensifies risks of anger. That is on page 25. All right. Right about now, we pause to observe a short break. Newspaper headline continue with more updates. Please stay tuned.
Every person who is charged with a criminal offense is entitled to defend himself in person or by a legal practitioner of his own choice.
Remember that an individual is entitled to violence.
Every citizen in Nigeria is entitled to maintain a private life.
You are approaching a military checkpoint or a police checkpoint without knowing that it is against or it offends them and subject you to a frog jump. That is wrong.
Thanks for staying tuned. We continue with the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, and I'll take it from the lead story. It says, Water Resources Bill. Southern Middle Belt leaders go to cut. I read this quote. This country has lived in peace for several years with its land vested in the governors through the Land Use Act, which is part of the Constitution. Who said that? Get the Nigerian Tribune newspaper on page 5. Beside the picture, Daura Varsity of Transportation will be built for free by Chinese company, says Amechi. See the details on page 6. And on page 25, 3,261 set for Amotekun screening in Ekiti. Now below the picture, Northern elders say no to review of 1999 Constitution. The story is on page 25. And on page 5, Northern lawyers write Malami over formation of new bar association. Now below the masthead, NNPC accrued 3.6 trillion naira from crude oil liftings in 13 months. This is a report, and the details on page 7. I did not meet with Obaseki. This is coming from Ngeni, and the story is on page 23. On page 6, businesses may not normalize till August 2021. This is a report, and is on page 6. Above the masthead, poultry farmers lament continuous ban on forex for maize importation, says shortage causing on the feeding of birds, low egg production. Federal government plans to inject 600 billion naira into agriculture for food security. See the details on page 25. And last story on Nigerian Tribune, Edo Ondo, IGP warns politicians on arming of thugs. The kickers direct CPs to reject security architecture. APC, PDP bicker over reports. See details on page 25. We go to the Nation's newspaper, and I'll take it from the top above the masthead. Health workers serve strike notice. Ngigi raises hope. See details on page 7. Lawyers seeking MBA split, right Malami. The kicker, Akpata to audit polls. The story on that same page, page 7. Still on page 7, Forex crisis. Foreign investment at lowest ebb. And see the Nation businesses pages 7 to 24. Akala leads Oyo APC. The details on page 7. Now below the masthead, Edo Ondo 2020. The kickers. I love being underrated, says Ize Iyamu's running mate. PDP condemns attacks on members. APC tackles Jagade over White Elephant project. ADP candidate criticizes governor on reduction of tuition fees. See the details on page 35. Naira recovers as Forex says to BDCs near. Oil prices, foreign reserves upbeat. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 5. And on that same page, Ghana faults Nigeria's closure of borders, Buhari executive order. We are not ill-treating Nigerian businessmen. Akufo-Addo to meet president on matters of interest. It starts from the front page, continues on page 5. Now to the lead story. 774,000 jobs, more slots for governors, lawmakers. 40% for government officials. NDE takes over recruitment with minister's supervision. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 5. We have the slots. The senators and rep members, 150 per local government. The governors take 100 per local government. Ministers, 50 per local government, while others take 100 per local government. And general public, 600 per local government. Groups to fill slots. Traditional rulers, religious bodies, civil society groups, NLC, NUJ, ASUP, NURTW. Alright, the picture is that of migrants being assisted by medical doctors to get off a rescue ship on the Mediterranean. This happened yesterday. Now to the last story, the bottom strips. Multi-choice hikes DSTV, Go TV rate. See the details on page 8. And on page 4, COVID-19 stories table. That is on page 4. We'll move up to Business Day newspaper, and I'll take it from the lead story. Nigerian economy needs industrial boosters to create manufacturing jobs. The kicker, Vietnam, India holds lessons as China pivots to domestic consumption. I take that kicker again, as China pivots to domestic consumption. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 30. Now beside that, planned reform of container regime to save over 1.7 billion naira yearly. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 31. An inside story, without subsidy, petrol price to reach 157.55 naira for September. See the story on page 1. Wigwe names African Banker of the Year. See details on page 6. And that is on newspaper headlines this morning. With that business story, we come to the end of today's edition of newspaper headlines. Thank you for watching. Wednesday is another day. Do join us for a fresh edition. But before we take our leave, I leave you with these words on giving from Luke chapter 6 verse 38. It's give and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Remember, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Have a glorious week and bye for now.
Hello, we are starting a new series of episodes on the show Youthful and Purposeful. It promises to be impactful, insightful, enlightening and refreshing, far beyond the ordinary. We know that you've been looking for an avenue to learn deep, satisfying truths in simple and precise terms that are easy and refreshing to the mind. And that's why we've packaged this show just for you.